Hey everyone, today I'll be covering Powkiddy's latest iteration to its RGB line, as well as its latest RK3326 handheld, the RGB20S. Firstly, I'm sorry for a couple of weeks late with this review, but unfortunately there were some shipping issues. Fortunately though, I had got mine from Go Game Geek and they've got very good customer service, so I was able to resolve everything pretty quickly, so thank you for that. Anyway, I've previously covered the original RGB20 quite favourably on the channel, so it's quite neat to see what Powkiddy has attempted to do in updating the original's pretty funky design. The RGB20S is another RK3326 handheld, so it can play everything up to and including the PlayStation 1 library pretty comfortably, with it moving on to some support for the Dreamcast, PSP, Nintendo 64 and original DS. It also brings with it the community dev support the RK3326 handhelds have benefited from, with the RGB20S itself even coming shipped with a Powkiddy version of the custom firmware known as RCOS. The RGB20S is very similar to the other S iterations Powkiddy have made this year. I really like the white and black colour combo personally, and always up to playing on vertical handhelds, not to mention like the original, so I'm glad it was considered for a refresh here. The back shoulder buttons are huge and clicky, but work very well as buttons. The choice of having the analog stick at the top make using the shoulder buttons easier when using them instead of the D-pad though. So if you're playing things like GBA games, this configuration can be a bit awkward. I'm not a huge fan of the smiley face front-facing button style, but given Powkiddy have thrown in the Tiger front sticker, they're obviously aware of this and even lean into it to an extent, which gives the more younger or tiger-loving gamers a great opportunity to make the handheld their own, which is quite neat. The RGB20S has a good 3.5-inch IPS display, dual microSD card slots, and a pretty capable 3500 mAh battery. The most confusing aspect of the refresh is the addition of a Wi-Fi switch but lack of the actual Wi-Fi chip on the board, meaning that the Wi-Fi switch on the case doesn't actually do anything as is. Considering the RGB10S and the original RGB20 both had Wi-Fi, it's sad to see a step backwards in this respect, while they have actually gone to some efforts to improve the original in many other ways. Controls for the RGB20S are overall pretty good. There's certainly a bit of adjusting period for me to get used to, mainly due to the position of the joysticks and how the D-pad's positioned right at the bottom left. There's certainly the natural preference to hold the handheld in a way that favours the joysticks, where most of the time you'll be using either a joystick with the buttons or the D-pad and buttons. So the negatives of the controls are almost all ergonomic ones over any issues with the actual controls themselves. From a buttons, joystick and shoulder buttons perspective, they've actually been some of the more positive ones I've used recently. Didn't come across any sticking or response issues while playing games or trying to pull off combos. So as I mentioned in the intro, the Powkiddy RGB20S actually comes with what seems to be a Powkiddy build of the custom firmware RCOS. The RCOS firmware is one of my absolute favourite custom firmwares and is both very easy to pick up and use, but also very powerful in terms of customization for those who would like to dig deeper. It is a shame that Powkiddy didn't spend the time to throw in some customization and quality of life improvements specific to the RGB20S though, like making use of the function button on the front of the console for example, as it wouldn't have been a big job but would have made RetroArch's various hotkey functions a lot easier to learn for newcomers. That said, RCOS is still a very good firmware, so there's a few areas like PSP and DS emulation that benefits greatly for using it. So I'll cut to some emulation now and summarise back up at the end. Overall, the Powkiddy RGB20S isn't a bad vertical handheld. It is an RK3326, so it doesn't hold any surprises, and it is an iteration of an existing handheld. It does, in my opinion, manage to improve on the original RGB20 in almost every way, except for the obvious lack of Wi-Fi, which is a missed omission for sure. I don't think it will be the top of a lot of people's favourite devices lists because of this, but the improvements are welcome, and ultimately the RGB20S isn't a bad little handheld, although for portability I think the Powkiddy RGB10S does well against it for the better all-rounder. But that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching.